2 minutes after 1, and we've already got over 60 participants. So I think maybe we'll get this
Wowee.
show on the road.
Let's kick it
Let's
off.
go. Let's
Let's kick it
go.
off. All right.
Party started.
John, I don't know if you're able to bring me up to join this window, but I don't know if everyone can see me. Just like to introduce myself. There we are. Hello, everyone. I'm Elliot. So you may have received a couple of emails from me or seen some spam on LinkedIn about this webinar that we've been so excited for a very long time. All the stars have aligned, and I mean that figuratively and literally. We've got a star line up here, and I'm very grateful and really fortunate to have these stars come together for us, and just want to take this moment to thank you all as well for joining. And it's very hard sometimes just to give up the hour that you have to go and walk around and do what you need to do, but it's why we encourage everyone to bring their lunch, and if you stick around, you'll be rewarded for that as well. But without further ado, I'm actually not going to introduce the speakers. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, because I think it will be a disservice to the phenomenal accolades that they've all got attached to their name. So we'll start off in no particular order. Maybe if everyone's got the same order of the window, it's sort of top left, Aileen, if I'm not mistaken, and then Ryan goes across. So we can go clockwise from Aileen, if that's all right. Maybe just to share a bit about yourself. We've already spoken about our favorite chocolates and holidays, so we can skip that part. But also the topic that you might be addressing today and why that is a hot topic in the contact center space.
Well, welcome everybody, and thank you so much for joining us. And as Elliot mentioned, your lunch break is really important, and so we want to maximize the value that we bring to the next hour. If you don't know who I am, I'm Aileen Day. I am a certified customer experience professional, one of only a few that is available to the public. And a lot of what I talk about and work with is creating what I call a value-driven brand. And today I'm talking about how your team values in your organization can help create that value-driven brand, and understanding values and emotions and all of those things can improve your employee and customer experience.
I'll pick up the baton there. Thanks, Aileen. And thanks to MaxContact and Elliot for organising this. It's a real pleasure to be here. My name's Ryan McGory. I'm the founder of a company called Xona, and we work with businesses to improve their culture, employee experience, and well-being. My background has been in contact centres. I was a head of employee experience, comms, and well-being at UE Insurance for about 10 years, and 80 to 90% of our people there were contact centre based. And my role was to build programs, platforms, and strategies. And we're quite lucky to win a number of awards for our efforts and recognition, HR tech, strategy, and employee well-being across my decade there. My specialty is working with data and building tools and models that measure effectiveness of strategies against workforce metrics like engagement, absenteeism, productivity, and turnover. And that's what I do now with Xona, is help workplaces improve their culture and results. The topic I might touch on today is psychosocial hazards, and it's making a lot of noise for a few reasons. The first is that it's a legal requirement of workplaces to manage psychosocial hazards, and there's been a code of practice and some regulation put into it that helps enforce this. And there's penalties and stuff like that, all the way down to fines and the like. And secondly, I think it's a hot topic because there's a lot of confusion around it. So my favourite question that I've had in the last month is what the fuck is a psychosocial hazard, which is a pretty good question because it's pretty ambiguous, but hopefully can shed some light on that today. So that's my intro, and I'll hand the baton to, I think clockwise would be Luke.
Well, g'day everyone. Yes, my name is Luke Jamieson, and look, I'm nudging on nearly 20 years of contact center experience, and I've remained passionate about that entire time. And I think the biggest part about contact center that I love and that gets me smiling is employee engagement. So that's what I'm here to talk to you all about today, about employee engagement and how that intersects with this new thing called AI. And there's another bloke here that knows a little bit about AI, so I think I'll dovetail somewhere in the middle of everyone. So with that said, I'll hand over to Simon.
Hi, thanks, Luke, and thanks to MaxContact and to everyone for joining. My name's Simon Kriss. This is going to be really embarrassing. I've been around call centers for more than 35 years and managed big global brands, Cathay Pacific, Expedia, people like that. But these days specialize in the application of AI for customer experience and particularly for contact centers, and wrote a book on that topic last year. So I'm really looking forward to this discussion with these great people.
Thank you, Simon. Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, all the speakers. It's a great intro, and you definitely did a better job than I would have done. So I want to kick off the conversation. Before I do, I want to remind everybody that there will be an open Q&A later on, but as we're progressing through the conversation, anything that comes to mind, please just write something in there, and we'll get to your questions later. But yeah, don't forget about it, that's for sure. What I want to start off with, I think it'd be a good place, Ryan, if you don't mind, maybe as psychosocial hazards is quite a new concept, or it's being adopted a lot more now that it's sort of compulsory to look at these things, especially with the penalties associated with it. If you don't mind, maybe explaining a bit how psychosocial hazards such as high call volumes, irate customers affect the mental well-being of contact center agents in general. And then from there, I think it's pretty obvious once you share a bit about how that works, we can talk about the solutions to that, as well as, the strategies that businesses as a whole are using to mitigate those challenges whilst delivering a customer-focused strategy. So if you don't mind.
Yeah, for sure. I've been talking about this topic for so long that I sometimes forget that it needs an intro. Now, you probably know already, but in case you don't, psychosocial hazards are aspects of work or work environments that have the potential to cause psychological or physical harm to people. So the term can be a bit scary, but really it's just stuff that might affect your people physically, mentally. They're pretty broad, but they generally relate to the way that work is organized, or the work environment itself, or the jobs that people do, or the support that's available to them. So anything that can really impact an employee's mental, emotional, and physical health. Now, the hazards have been categorized by Safe Work Australia, who list them out as 13, 14 different hazards, things like job demands, job control, poor change management, harassment, bullying, role clarity, etc. All hazards have the tendency to create a stress response in individuals. So like job demands, such as high call volumes, or emotional demands related to work, like speaking with irate customers. Now, the research and also common knowledge says that if this is significant, sort of severe or prolonged, so it goes on for a long time, then it could cause psychological or physical injury. But in real terms, we're talking about high call volumes. If there's constant pressure and little recovery time between calls, then that's a recipe for stress and exhaustion. So that's a common sense one. High volumes can create a sense in people of being overwhelmed, can reduce job satisfaction, and also increase the risk of burnout. And a similar story with irate customers. It's people dealing with demands of the role. These things happen. So it requires emotional labor to deal with those things, to manage your feelings or maintain professionalism, which could be emotionally draining. Being exposed to verbal abuse or aggression creates a stress response. So, you increase your levels, and can also contribute to anxiety and depression. So I think one of the things that looking at is the overall impact. So it's long-term exposure to these stressors without the right support or without the right management can lead to serious mental health issues, including burnout, anxiety disorders, and depressive symptoms, and can also negatively affect job performance, leading to a cycle of increased pressure and stress. And that we see in contact center environments is turnover, work cover claims, low productivity, absenteeism, and those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, if something comes to mind, you don't need me to point and direct, but I guess I have a question now for Luke on the back of what Ryan shared. This is sort of talking about solutions to mitigate the risks of psychosocial hazards, and often solutions today, or the term solution, can be directly associated with technology. And so maybe the question's for you, if you're aware at the moment of what businesses are doing to bridge the gap of the potential risks, and essentially, align their contingency plans and their roadmaps with employee engagement.
Yeah, so that's a good question. And I think if we're thinking about it from sort of a technology point of view and touching on what Ryan said, I think the big one there that's really probably low-hanging fruit and easy for us to identify is that frequency of call and how quickly those calls are smashing into each other and how much rest time you're getting in between them. That's a huge part. Not having that downtime, that mental rest makes a massive impact, because you don't have time to reflect upon what's just happened and process that. And at the end of the day, once you've got a bank of, let's say, 50 calls that you've had no time to process, that can really hit you in a flood. And so workforce management's a huge part of identifying that and finding those moments. And I think that, and we'll touch on this a little bit later around, some of the use of AI and how that's assisting with that, whether it's bringing information to someone really quickly. So there's that there's that removal of anxiety around trying to find the right piece of information, whether it's analyzing call data and call flow data to smooth out someone's day, or how we're using AI to remove some of those tasks to free up people's time, so that they can spend more quality time with a customer and not feel rushed to get off, and then additionally also give them that breathing space between calls. So that's something we'll touch on, I think, a lot today, is particularly with AI, is what's the driving factor for implementing it, and what are you going to do with the time you save?
It's a good point. And I guess, Aileen, if I may ask you, driving factors behind AI today, you're probably seeing a lot about sort of the customer-driven strategies that are not only looking at AI to deliver a better experience for customers, so they can self-serve, or you're having more directed, personalized experiences. But on the other side, it's definitely being implemented to improve the employee experience so they can deliver on business strategies. Have you seen much conversation being had around that? Or I guess there's a lot of mandates as well that are starting off with, at the top level, we want to bring in AI, and then after that, figuring out how it's going to happen, and that trickles down.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing that I commonly see, and I would say Simon probably comes across this quite often as well, is that especially now that there's mandates in place in Australian business, there is this absolute gung-ho search for the silver bullet. So what can we implement systems technology-wise that is going to do everything and stop and mitigate all of these, social issues. I did also forget to mention, I'm also a clinical therapist. So, one of the biggest issues that I'm seeing is people coming in and showing signs of burnout, showing signs of resentment towards their employer, and how that's manifesting in the workplace is toxic, right? And so from organizations trying to implement AI to fix this issue, my kind of guidance around that is, okay, there still needs to be a human experience in all of this, right? So yes, find the technology that, will create solutions, but also understand in a systems thinking kind of way, what other issues do you perhaps inflect by putting those systems into play. So for example, a client of mine implemented some technology that was meant to help their team service call rates faster and give them more information, more clarity of information on the screen. But the problem was that there was actually too much irrelevant information, and the team started becoming quite overwhelmed and then dismissing what was on the screen instead. So it actually, the business thought, yeah, this system's going to fix all our issues and the team's going to have everything at their fingertips. But the reality was it was too much of the wrong information, and the behavior, the human experience that kind of caused outside of that they didn't think about, was now people aren't even using the system because it's too overwhelming. And so just thinking in a systems kind of design, what are the touch points that you're implementing? What is the purpose behind them? I'm sad to say that I've come across a few businesses who are just looking to tick a box to say that they've done something, whether it's the right something or not. And I want to hope that, the conversations we've had in learning about that stuff is that they've turned the page and realized that they need to do something that is actually meaningful to their team, because all of those issues that Ryan discussed earlier are real issues. Like, people are hitting up therapy, people are hitting up work cover, and resilience is low in those kind of environments, and people's want to burn out is becoming less and less. They don't see the point in putting every ounce of their energy, effort, and soul into an organization who can't give them back some genuine level of care.
Simon, sorry, you're on mute, but I was going to call on you anyway. I could see you had something ready to share.
Yeah,
Thanks,
I think AI here is the beauty and the beast in what you're talking about. To Rory's point, we can use AI to listen to calls, pick out high emotive load, flag a team leader, or just say to AI, say straight to that agent, that was a really heavy call. Do you need a break? And it's not so much a risk that we can prevent, because we don't know which call this is going to happen on, right? Or the frequency with which it's going to happen. So that's kind of the beauty side. But the beast side of AI is it's going to make the situation that you just talked about worse. In that, today, 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 calls are, where are the toilets in Heathrow Airport? It's kind of, churn stuff. And there's only a couple of calls, 2, 3, 4 out of 10 that are really beefy, meaty, take emotive load. With the advent of AI, as it grows stronger and stronger, and it takes away more of those simple calls, the concentration of deeper, meatier calls is going to get higher and higher. So if people think that their agents are going to become more productive in an AI world, they're wrong. They're going to become less productive, because we're going to have to give them more breaks. We're going to have to give them more ways in which to load and clear their head. And, you may wind up having a masseuse or a counsellor on site full time for a big enough call center, because everything that comes in is going to use their EQ, rather than, today, a lot of it, like I said, is simple stuff.
I think we're thinking about this the wrong way. I think we're confining ourselves right now to an 8-hour day. I think what we're saying is, and I believe this to be true, that customer service and contact centers in particular are going to become a white glove service. We are going to remove a lot of those easy calls, and AI will take over a lot of that, which is fantastic, because it's efficient, it's cheaper, it's et cetera. But when that fails, you need a human, and you need that engagement. And I also think that that's just good for humanity, that person-to-person engagement, particularly when 1 in 3 Aussies is considered lonely. So I think that's a really horrible stat when you think about that. We're yearning for human connection, but I think we're thinking about this in the wrong way. I think we're saying, okay, well, we're going to, if it's going to be white glove, it's going to be high intensity. We're removing all that low hanging fruit, and we're going to have this huge cognitive load put on us. Should we be rethinking how we do our work day? Why do we have to work 8 hours a day? If AI can pick it up in 4 hours of our day, let's get back to connecting with humans. Let's have a 4-hour workday. That's what I think.
I think that's absolutely fantastic. I was just doing some research yesterday. Medibank have just taken that on a few months ago, literally, I think 12 weeks ago, a 4-day work week, and they call it the 180-100 model. So it's a 100%, I don't want to muck this up. It's 100% of the work, 80%, no, 100% productivity in 80% of the time with 100% of the effort. I'm going to probably clarify that. I don't want to muck it up for them. But they have had, from an employee experience point of view, such an uptick in their engagement, in their they've had a reduction in people taking sick leave and carers leave. They are basically like the good old sickie. You don't want to come to work, you're not actually sick. They've had an absolute turnaround in the amount of people taking sickies. So I'm just going to clarify. So it says the experiment is based on the 180-100 model, whereby employees maintain 100% of their pay, reduce their working hours to 80% while maintaining 100% productivity. And the statistics on how that has changed the way they do business are amazing. And obviously that comes with a lot of strategy, a lot of communication, like solid communication on how that works, what's expected, how you keep people accountable. But absolutely, to your point, Luke, like that is how you reframe that human experience and how you deliver a values-based business.
I had a similar discussion with a very large BPO. I can't say who they are, but they're a very large BPO just recently with the board, where they said, well, we want to employ AI so that we can drop, 400 resources or whatever. And I kind of gently steered them into that they were thinking about it the wrong way. And I said to them, what if your staff, instead of dropping those staff, everybody got to work a 9-day fortnight but got paid for 10 days? And they all kind of looked at me like I was stupid, where would that lost productivity kind of be made up? And I started pointing them to their attrition numbers, and their cost of attrition was in the millions per year. And so I said, if people only had to work 9 days instead of 10, what would happen to your attrition number? It's kind of going to go south. So I think there's a lot, to Luke's point, I think there's a lot of rethinking of models. I mean, essentially, I'm going to offend some people here, but essentially call centers are still doing the same crap they were doing in 1970. It's still a you come to me approach, which came from the days of retail where you had to go to somebody's shop. And what we're saying these days is you call my phone number, you email my email address, you come to me, you come to me, you come to me. And I think we're going to see a big kind of turnaround on that will also start to affect traffic patterns and all kinds of things, leading to much more flexible work. But I don't know what Rory thinks.
It's really interesting. I think typically these decisions have a key driver, about how to use things. And I'd say predominantly it's to reduce costs, or it's predominantly to increase revenue. So the topic of AI usually comes up with, how do we use AI to save money? How do we use AI to make money? One of the things that I see like very rarely kind of utilized is the employee consultation thing. Because actually going out to people and doing like a thorough look or a thorough analysis on how do we use something to make life better for the organization, for our people, and actually look holistically at it. And I just see there's a huge absence of that in almost every discussion I've had on the and read about on the use of AI. I think this one's super important because, and when it comes to contact centers, they're all about the people, and it's the people who can help reduce costs, or people that can help increase revenue, and sometimes it's directly and indirectly. And I think like there's a real absence of that thinking here. Psychosocial hazards might be a way to look at it, or AI might be a way to look at it, but I think it's just that mindset of actually, when making a decision, at what part are the people consulted or involved or engaged?
This is something I've actually heard Luke talk about before with businesses today, you know, when they're designing their employee value propositions and things like that, then they're not just having the conversation from the boardroom, that they're actually including, you know, those on the front line in these conversations because, you know, at the end of the day, those who the decisions are being made for know best about what they need and what they're looking for. And I'm going to put the question out to the floor, but has anyone maybe noticed any of the potential risks associated with bringing on these new softwares from the perspective of enabling, I guess, agents the autonomy to sort of drive their own journey and you know, set a career goal that I think sometimes is inhibited by new technologies that don't, you know, unlock the ability for the agents to grow on their own or sort of develop their own understanding of what it is that they would like to pursue in that field. Because in contact centers, a lot of the time, you know, you start off in a particular role and you know, it's not always the most glamorous thing, but you can grow towards a particular area of the business given the experiences that you've got. Does AI or any of these new instruments take away from that?
I don't think it takes away from it. I mean, I think we have to be real, you know, pretty much everyone that gets into the industry or falls into the industry has a I'll do it while or I'll do it until sense about what they're doing, right? I'll do it while I'm completing my studies or, you know, while my partner's doing this or this, or I'll do it until a better job comes along, or I'll do it until I can move into finance because that's what I studied. And I think you can enable that a ton of different ways. You know, I've heard Luke talking about this before about, you know, putting in place those programs that kind of actively support doing that. So I don't think AI hinders that, but I think really quickly it's going to become a hiring decision. So, you know, staff are going to start to look at which call center should I work in? Well, I work in that one over there. Well, I work in that. Oh, this one over here has AI that does all the mundane stuff for me. I think I'll go and work in that one. So I think it's going to become a bit of a differentiator from a recruitment perspective. Luke, agree, disagree?
100% agree. I think because what it's doing is it's taking away those elements that add no meaning, have no impact, don't align with your purpose, and they're the things that drive engagement. Then add on a sense of excitement and a sense of self. The more challenging your role, the more likely you are to be able to unlock all of those things that drive employee engagement. So the sooner we can remove some of those things, the better. And I think even removing some of those really toxic things, that Ryan was talking about at the top of the call. Elliot and I have actually worked with a BPO who one of the roles of the agent was to monitor content for social media, for all the things that we don't want to see and we don't want our kids to see. And these content moderators, funny enough, 3 months into the job, have all got PTSD and are leaving and running out the door. You know, and when they engaged us to help drive employee engagement, there's no tool, there's no employee engagement strategy that you can going to be able to do that's going to supersede the impact that the terrible things that they're seeing have on their job. So therefore, you know, when I think about AI, not just removing the simple stuff, it's also sometimes removing those toxic pieces that really impact our lives and our jobs. And I think that there is definitely a place for it from an employee engagement perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. AI can be used for good or for bad. It comes down to actually defining how it's going to help and who it's going to help.
I also think it's going to change the future of what an agent looks like. So, we look at an agent today and they need to be across 14 different products or processes. They need to know how to do chat, call, email. We want to have them be upskilled within 6 months' time and entirely proficient with great quality and be able to, like, the list goes on of all of these like tick boxes that we say we want in the perfect unicorn agent. But I think the future unicorn agent is somebody who is highly empathetic, who has a good grasp on technology, is flexible, understands where AI can assist them, and can make their job more efficient. So I think that the future of what the agent looks like is very different too.
Yeah, high EQ and high LQ rather than high IQ, because that IQ is going to come from AI. And I think it's also going to change some other dynamics. So, if you had an AI, a great AI-enabled knowledge or, process system where it was really intuitive, blah, 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 you don't need a 4 or a 6 week induction program anymore. You might pull that down to a week or 2 weeks instead of 6. And so you're also going to get rid of, and some call centers are already seeing this, the serial trainees. These are people that join the contact center, do the 6 week induction training, quit, join the next contact center and do 6 weeks training, quit, join and they're serial trainees, right? They're professional trainees. I think it will kind of get rid of some of those and almost start to move us more towards, for some contact centers, the prospect of being able to use the gig economy. Because if some of your calls are a little bit easier and they're AI enabled, and the agents are AI enabled, they could just do a gig shift here and there. In some circles that's a dirty word, but I could see it happening.
The one thing that I guess AI at the moment isn't considering, or it's not part of the package, is empathy and emotional intelligence, right? And that's something I guess we'll see a massive progression in the years to come as AI progresses, but the human touch is sort of what's lacking. So that's sort of a question I would have, and it's irrespective of whether an organization is bringing in AI or isn't. But how can organizations today foster a culture of empathy and emotional support within their contact center? Plain and simple. That's the question. Maybe Aileen, I'd like to start with you, given your background.
I would say stop hiring bodies and start hiring for skills. And I think, and I actually have a grand hope that the future of an agent changes, in the sense that we start thinking from a leadership perspective, that we start thinking about how can we engage their mind, how can we engage them to see this as a career, not just I'll do this till I finish studying, or I'll do this until my wife earns a bit more money and I can get a different, like all of those things that you talked about, Simon. I've had those experiences with team members working in call centers, and it was always a stopgap position. It wasn't a career for them. And so I think when you start to think about how you reframe what a call center can be, and you take out the boring shit and give that to technology and AI, and you start making it about the human experience, and you start helping those agents realize the impact that they have on the person on the other end of the phone. But that also starts with your culture, and that starts with hiring leaders who are there also to lead, not just as a stopgap themselves. And having, I think it's awesome that there's AI technology that could raise the alarm to say, hey, that call that your team member was just on was really heavy and they might need some additional assistance. And that also, to put those AI pieces in place, takes empathy. You have to be able to train it to be able to distinguish what's heavy and what's not. So I think that's a great start. But having a leadership team in that call center who is tuned into what the humans in that call center need. And not waiting for AI to be implemented, but tuning in and checking in with each agent and saying, hey, talk to me about what you've had on the phone today. Have you had a break between calls? Or, asking those emotionally intelligent questions to not just wait until technology can do it for you, to start practicing it now. And, it's the good old adage, treat others how you would like to be treated. If you're having a rough trot, you would want somebody to tap you on the shoulder and go, hey, mate, is everything all right? Like, what can I do to help you out? Do you need a break? Can I, take over the phones for half an hour? Like, what can we do to help you? We shouldn't be waiting for technology and AI to be implemented for those behaviors to be a part of our culture. Really, AI should be supporting and uplifting and amplifying that culture and those behaviors, not doing it for us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely agree. Oh, sorry, Simon. I was going
yeah,
to
I
ask.
think that I think you're right on, Aileen. I think to extend on that, what people experience, people do. You've all joined that workplace where somebody whispered, "Don't mention the war," because it's just going to kick off some stupid discussion or something. And it's a very similar thing. If your staff see empathy, feel empathy, experience empathy, they're going to start utilizing this as a tool. But in most contact centers, what do they experience? We're going to tell you when you will and will not click off being in a red state. We're going to ask about your AHT every second day. There's no such thing as teams. It's just groups of people that are forced to work together. So they're not experiencing that empathy, that truly collaborative workspace. But I think they could. I just don't see it.
Well, the question I was going to ask is, do you think that working from home has maybe made it harder to, facilitate that sort of support and have those conversations?
Yeah, a little bit, but I also think it's an excuse as well. I've worked in plenty of contact centers where those conversations weren't happening and it was face to face, and the person sat on the other side of a partition from you. So, I think a big part comes down to the metrics that we assign in a contact center, and that's what drives a lot of this bad behavior, drives some of these feelings that Ryan's been talking about, and these these psycho hazards are driven by KPIs that don't connect with us as a human and treat people as a robot. So I think that I has COVID and working from home played a part? Yes and no. I think there's just that for every negative that we see from working from home, there's a positive, and so yeah, I think it's an excuse.
Well, I'd agree with that as well. I think there's a bigger problems. I think culturally, rather than given the pandemic scapegoat coming out again. There's one thing that I think gets said a lot, and Aileen, I'm not sure if you have heard this as well, but you can't teach people to give a shit is one of the things. And I think, and when it comes to culture, if you want to create a culture of empathy, you need to be really clear on what that is and what it looks like, I think. And I don't think many organizations do that particularly well. They keep saying ambiguous terms like empathy and vibe and, everything else that gets mentioned, but then fail to actually articulate what it is and what they expect from it. And I think that makes it difficult. If you can't articulate something, then you can't ask someone to role model something, which is what we need from leaders. If you want to create a real culture of, empathy or support, you need to know what it is. You need to teach people how to do it, or at least show them what the expectations are. And then you need to recognize people or you need to reward the right behavior. So again, if you haven't articulated it, you can't reward it. And then you need to hold people accountable when they're not doing it, when they're doing the opposite of it, which, too many times people can do that and get away with it as long as the results are okay, which goes back to, I think, what Simon was saying before.
Hey, Ryan, can I double click on that for either you or Luke, right? that whole thing of reward people for it is one that kind of gets up my nose a little bit, in that, you know, we design these reward schemes of employee of the month, and it's who did the most calls,
Oh
or,
my
you
God,
know,
me
it's
too.
Hawaiian shirt day, which just does my head in. How can we design things that not only play to protecting us from the risks that we're talking about here, but make it so that it feels a little more personalized? Because in a contact, you know, I'll pick a contact center where there's a 21-year-old working at this end of the floor and a 65-year-old working at that end of the floor. How do you kind of cut across through that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'll take maybe a stab at it, and Luke will correct me.
No, but I'll get in there.
I think first there's heaps in that to get something right, and to get it right for the individual. You're asking almost for an impossibility there. So I think accepting that is probably a first thing. And then it's having the right mindset to do your best, and then to get feedback and continually improve. I think that is the simplest strategy that you can repeat, regardless of size, regardless of your access to technology, is to give it a red hot go, collect feedback, and then continue to improve it. I've studied gamification for about 3.5 years and designed recognition strategies that went into the nth detail, that, you know, correlated things to business strategy and results, and used to put on, you know, hundreds of activities per year. I could talk all day about this, but I don't think anything's better than just, you know, actually having a genuine goal and then trying it and then continuously trying to improve it for people and take things on. Hawaiian shirts can work. I've seen it work. Might not be the thing that floats everyone's boat, but it's maybe listening to people to learn that, and then put a few things and do a few other things alongside Hawaiian shirts.
If someone comes out with a pizza day, I'm gonna absolutely flip a lid. I swear to God. Can I, in addition to that, say that one of the biggest faux pas, perhaps, is to believe that the 63-year-old and the 20-year-old don't have anything in common. And a lot of the work that I do is around understanding the intrinsic values of your team. And so intrinsically, both those people, whilst demographically being on different ends of the scale and perhaps, you know, very different life experiences to date, might still hold the same internal values. So things like understanding what those internal values are. So, for example, it might be that both of them value self-development, right? And what that looks like might be a little bit different for each person. But if they're doing a great job, what can you do perhaps that pertains to that value of self-development? Or I had an employer who understood that collectively there was a value of charity in their team. So when people were doing a really great job, instead of giving them a monetary bonus or bullshit, you know, praise, they actually donated money to the choice of that team member and gave that team member a paid day off. The engagement that created and the advocacy for that business that created was standalone, worth so much more than paying a donation to a chosen charity and that team member's day off, and then, you know, inevitably having to replace that team member with another team member for the day. But you know what happened? The team member would come back and they would just go and up the ante on their workload the next day to make up for it, and not even get upset about it, because they were still on an absolute high from what the organization did to recognize their efforts in the first place, and that it added value to something that they intrinsically valued. And so I would challenge organizations to think about rewards and recognition so much differently to how they currently do.
Yeah, I think thinking about the whole person is really important. I remember doing one really quickly, Elliot. I know. I remember doing one where we had people bring in their kids' artwork from the stuff you usually stick on the fridge, and we stuck it up on the wall in age groups. And each month, we did it for about 4 months. Each month, the CEO would come down and judge the top 3 in each age category. And what we did was we gave $30, $50 of art supplies to that kid's classroom. So people were going above and beyond to be part of it purely to win texters for their kids' classroom. It was kind of cool. Sorry, Luke, I probably cut you right off then.
Oh, no, this is it's a democracy. We're all here. Everyone's got a voice, right? Hey, I want to touch on a few things that I think you've all touched on in there, and maybe it also helps answer one of the questions I saw in the Q&A around how organisations foster a culture of empathy and emotional support within their contact centres. And that is, and Ryan, you touched on gamification, which is a huge passion of mine, and I love, and I've designed many a gamification employee engagement strategy for thousands of people. And one of the things that at the heart of gamification and it is the fact that it works for a diverse group of how we feel recognized, and what Aileen said about being that intrinsic reward. Richard Bartle, if you ever want to look this up, he designed this game called Mud way back when it was a text-based game, and he studied the users of his game, and he came up with these 4 different profiles: your killers, your socializers, your explorers, and and I'm missing one, Ryan. I'm sure you can fill me in. Just socializers, killers,
gatherers,
and achievers. Yeah,
I was going to say adventurers, achievers is the one. Yeah.
And each person played the game for different reasons. And when you killers was all about just getting in there and just winning. Achievers was about hitting these milestones and working with others. Socializers, probably pretty obvious. Explorers about becoming subject matter experts. When you look at a contact center, you've got all of those people in your organization, yet you tend to only recognize your killers or achievers, hit a goal or hit this KPI. And that's the challenge with, I think, a lot of KPIs is we focus them so much on the task, but the task isn't what has the impact or the meaning or the purpose. And when we can't link those together, we don't have employee engagement. We then have this challenge that we say reward and recognition. Well, those two things should not sit together. They just flow off the tongue so nicely, but they should be separated entirely, in my opinion. A reward is for what you do. Recognition is for the who. And so we need to separate those out, because, and I read this great book about this year, and it touches on the flip side of our personalities. And you think about corporate, in the corporate world, you don't want rebels, you don't want weirdos, you don't want people who are audacious. And yet all of those traits are actually really good in some spaces. They drive innovation, they drive different thinking, they drive challenging conversations. And so I would say that in order to change our culture and change how we do things, we need to take a step back and unpack how we've structured things in the past. Let's separate out reward and recognition. Let's rethink about how we reward and recognize the diversity of our people. And that starts with stop creating task-based roles, stop rewarding and start rewarding impact that we have on the organizations that we have and on the customers that we serve. Anyway, I'll just jump off my soapbox and I'll let you guys take over.
Just drop the mic, Luke. Just drop that mic.
I'm conscious of time. We don't have much longer left, but if anyone's got any Q&A.
We're getting started.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this might be the segue into introducing Food for Thought, a monthly webinar hosted by MaxContact Australia. But no, in all seriousness, this has been quite a successful webinar, so I'm sure we'll be doing another one of these in the near future. A question from Paul, and I'm going to leave this open. We've already discussed it in some capacity, but I guess the question is, are you seeing any indication of this particular thing happening in Australia right now? And that is, are organizations using AI, and I guess, automation in general doesn't just have to be AI, but are they using AI and automation to reduce that reduce to a 9-day work week, to allow people to do things, like re-educate, re-qualify, pretty much promoting people to, take a bit of extra time to themselves and grow in that capacity?
Not yet, I don't think. But I think we're pretty close. I think we're pretty close. I think we will start seeing a time saving, and smart organizations will ask the question of, what do we do with this spare time? And if it is, the smart organizations won't say, let's reduce staff. They will say, how do we create,
Redeploy.
how do we start to, not even redeploy, how do we solve the big mission that we have as an organization? Because so often they forget about the big mission, and therefore we don't spend the right time on it. I think that the smart organizations will do that. And I also think that we will start to see, as I said, this white glove service, which will then require some cool stuff, like maybe a diploma or a master's in customer service and things like that, where all of a sudden these roles become highly valued and something that people work towards and see as a career, not just as a stepping stone.
That'd be so amazing. Oh,
I like the sound of that. I think that might initially sound pessimistic, but I think if you take a slightly historical view of the last 250 years, or maybe even since the age of industrialization, there's been countless innovations that have helped to save time. There's been an introduction of whatever the technology or whatever the system was. Very rarely have organizations looked at each innovation not as an opportunity to reduce their costs or increase their revenue by reducing headcount. So I think there's a real challenge for people who are in senior leader positions or even middle management positions to see the writing on the wall that AI is causing disruption, and to come up with a really compelling business case about how to make sure that we, whatever this thing is called, spare time, to use it effectively to improve outcomes for businesses. Otherwise, I think as we look back at history, it will be used for the same way it has been, which is to remove people or get rid of people or innovate and become leaner, which is typically the way things roll. So I think it's a big challenge here, and it's going to be the businesses, I think, similar to what Luke said, who are proactive and strategically minded, that will play that card, and they'll be the ones that stand out.
It's going to be a C-suite argument that is going to have board impact. One of the things that could really help, and this is a shout out to the vendors, please stop selling your product as, buy this product and you can reduce your headcount. You're basically telling the industry that's what they should do, and we need to stop doing that.
it is so disheartening to have that as a sales tactic, in the sense that, there's a massive telco here in Australia who shall go unnamed, but they already have some of the most hideous customer experience records out there, and they are now about to go and implement technology to enable them to reduce $5 million worth of headcount, when they already can't deliver a basic customer experience, let alone a career thriving employee experience. And it's all about reducing headcount, not improving the experience, which blows my mind, because while they're doing that, they're also sitting on record profits. So I'm so conflicted as to why they would want to do this when they've got that, and yet they could have this.
Absolutely. And I think you've opened a question for the next webinar, 100%. Talking about, I guess, business priorities in this climate, cost of living climate, cost reduction climate. There's a lot to talk about, and I don't think this will be the last food for thought session that we host. I don't think this will be the last one that any of you attend, and I just want to say thank you very much again, Aileen, Ryan, Luke, and Simon, for joining us. If you could hear the round of applause that everyone's giving you right now, your ears would be deaf. But thank you very much, everyone else, for tuning in. And keep your eyes peeled for an email, maybe summarizing a bit about what we spoke about today, and promoting some of the books that these wonderful thought leaders have published or are publishing. And until next time, we'll see you then. Thank you.
Perfect.